Yesterday we talked about the 45, 45, 90 triangle, which, just to recap, let's just refresh our memory. If I have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, remember that means that one angle is 90, these two are equal to each other, and they're both 45, which means that two sides are the same. So we usually just call those two x, and then the hypotenuse is always x root 2. So that's our 45, 45, 90. Okay, and we did all that yesterday. Now today we're going to look at the other special right triangle, which is this guy, the 30, 60, 90. So here's the pieces that you need to know about this one. Obviously you're still going to have a 90-degree angle. And then one's going to be 30 and one's going to be 60, right? So this one looks a little smaller, so I'll make that the 30. And I'll make this the 60. Now, I don't know if you remember or not from geometry, but it's also kind of common sense. Across from the smallest angle is the smallest side of the triangle. Doesn't that make sense? Think about, and it works for the biggest angle too, right? So the biggest angle, across from that biggest angle, should be the biggest side. What is the biggest side in a right triangle? The hypotenuse, right? And what angle is it always across from? The 90-degree angle, right? And that's the biggest angle in my triangle. So it all makes sense. Across from the biggest angle is the biggest side, and across from the smallest angle is the smallest side. Okay? Now you always need to go off of numbers. You don't go off of the one that looks the smallest. If I had swapped these two and I put the 30 here and the 60 here, this would have been my shortest side. You always go off of the numbers, but usually we do write it in the right order, but just in case it's not, across from the 30-degree angle, this is going to be my shortest side. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, whatever that shortest side is, I call it x. So the shortest side is always x. The next easiest one to get is actually your hypotenuse. Does anybody remember from geometry if the short side is x, what the hypotenuse is? Yes, it's just double it. It's 2x. And does anybody remember what this middle side's going to be? That's the one that's a little weird. It's going to be, see how this one was x times the square root of 2? This is going to be x times the square root of 3. So that is your 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay, so let's try some things. If I tell you that this is 4, what's the hypotenuse? I'm sorry. I tricked all of you because right now you don't even know that that's a 30, 60, 90. I didn't label any of the angles. Now you know. I don't even have to label both, right? Because if that's 30, that has to be 60. But something has to indicate to you that it's a 30, 60, 90, and which angle's which. Because in the 45, 45, 90, it didn't matter because they're both 45s. But this one, it does matter. So yes, now if that's 4, you guys are correct. That's 8. So then this back side would be 4 root 3. You are correct. Okay, let's step it up a notch. What if I had... Let's say I gave you this right triangle and I told you that this was... Oh, let's make things interesting. What if this was 10 root 5? So, the first thing that I would do is I always want to find the short side. Because once I have the short side, I can find anybody else. The short side, I can double it to get the hypotenuse, or I can times it by root 3 to get that back side. So I would find the short side first. So if that's 10 root 5, what must this be? In other words, well, look back at this one. If I didn't know that and I knew this, how do you get from this to this? Yeah.
Just that over 2.
Yeah, I just want half of it, right? Right? So, what would half of this thing be? 5 root 5. That thing divided by 2 would be 5 root 5. Now that I have the short side, I'm going to take the short side and I just multiply it by root 3, right, to get this. So what would that thing be times root 3? I'm hearing a right answer, I think. Say it with confidence. What is it? Yeah, 5 root 15. I'm taking this and I'm going to times it by root 3. Root 5 times root 3 is just root 15. So this is 5 root 15 right there. Does that make sense? Yeah? Everybody's okay? All right. Okay, let me try and trick you again. The triangle isn't always going to be drawn that way, right? It might look like this. Who knows? Who knows what they're going to do to you? Let's say there's my 30. Oh, and let's say maybe this time I give you that this side is, I'll make it not so terrible yet. Let's say this was 9 root 3. So again, get your bearings in order. Ask yourself, well, who is the shortest side? It's always across from the 30-degree angle, right? So here's my 30-degree angle. This is the short side. Normally, I take the short side and I times it by root 3 to get this one. So that means this must have been 9. And now that I know the short side's 9, that means the hypotenuse is what? 18. Okay, you ready for a really hard one? Or harder? Okay, here it comes. Let's say this is 10. You need to find the other two sides. So again, start by figuring out, well, who's the shortest side? Well, if that's 60, this has got to be 30, right? So this is the shortest side. I would take this side and I would times it by root 3 to get this one. So remember, just like we did yesterday, I can write a little equation to solve for this if I can't just do it in my head. I want to take some number, well, let's call it x, right? I don't know what that side is. I want to take that number and I want to multiply it by root 3, and that's going to get me 10. So if I wrote that like an equation, that side times root 3 gets me 10. Now, just solve for x. Okay, you got an answer? Yes, it is. Divide both sides by root 3. You can't leave a square root in the denominator. So I take 10 over root 3 and I times it by root 3 over root 3. And you are totally correct. That would be 10 root 3 over 3. I can't simplify that answer, so that whole crazy thing really is what x is. Now comes a tough question. Your 10 root 3 over 3. What's the hypotenuse? That's it. I'm just going to take this and times it by 2. If I times that crazy fraction by 2, don't I just get 20 root 3 over 3? Right? If you just multiply by 2 over 1, psh, that wasn't so bad. I still can't simplify that, so I'm done. So that's kind of as bad as these get. The only other thing that I want to point out, and I actually don't know if it matters for you guys that much, because I can't remember if these are, just let me look real quick. I can't remember if the special rate triangles are on. Oh, they are, so it doesn't even matter. But I'll share it with you anyway. When you go off to college, maybe you'll take a class where you don't get a reference sheet. So your reference sheet does have your 2 special rate triangles on it right there. So you don't have to worry about memorizing, like recreating them from scratch. But if you ever had to, usually, I mean, you know these are both going to be x's because it's a 45, 45, 90, so they're going to be the same. The most common mistake, and you usually get that that's x and that's 2x, is messing these two up. A lot of times kids call that one x root 2 and that one x root 3. So the only little tidbit that I wanted to give you to help you sort of remember that the 2 is with this one has 2 sides the same. So you keep the 2 sides the same, the 2 goes right there. This one, all 3 sides are different, so that one's got the 3. All right, but you have it, so it's not a big deal. But in the future, remember, so you won't forget. Okay, so I have a little activity that I thought we would try today. So let me actually stop the video because we're done with that. The heck? What am I doing wrong?